Yavapai County. My name is David McAtee. I am the Public Information Officer for Yavapai County, and today I'm here with Sheila Polk, so we can talk a little bit about diversion and MatForce and several other things. So thank you, Sheila, for coming.
My pleasure.
Appreciate your time. So I recently spoke with Jeff Noonan, the jail guy, and he talked a little bit about diversion, but I know I can get a whole lot more information out of you about that. So tell me a little bit about what the county's doing to keep our jail population as low as possible.
Well, the county does lots of things to keep our jail population low, and I think it's one of the myths that we have low-level offenders locked up in our county jail. We absolutely do not. And we've had a number of programs that we've implemented over the last 20 years that are focused on making sure that the jail is just being used to incarcerate those who pre-trial are dangerous, so they can't be back out in the community, or through their history have shown that they will not show up for trial. The County Attorney Pretrial Diversion Program is a program that the Yavapai County Attorney's Office just launched on May 1st. It has been in the works for over a year to put all the pieces in place. I am super excited about our pretrial diversion program because I really believe in giving an opportunity to those who have committed drug possession offenses, giving them an opportunity to connect with services and see if they can get their life back on track and then not have a criminal record that will follow them for the rest of their life. So the pretrial diversion program does begin with someone being criminally charged for drug possession. We then review to determine whether or not they meet the qualifications for diversion, and if they do, we offer them that opportunity to enroll. If they successfully complete, then the charges are dismissed and there is no record that will follow them. What I'm really excited about with the diversion program is that we partnered with the private sector to make this happen. So we partnered with a group called Complete Care Partners, which is actually a partnership between Yavapai Guidance Clinic, West Yavapai Guidance Clinic, and Spectrum Healthcare. Those are two very well-established, very well-renowned behavioral health organizations.
Local here in Yavapai County.
Local here in Yavapai County. And actually between the two, they cover all of Yavapai County with services.
Yes.
So they formed this partnership and they now contracted with the county to provide the services through our diversion program. And the way the diversion program works is that once a client enrolls, then they are sent to Complete Care Partners where a complete assessment is done. And then the reason for that assessment is somebody might be arrested for possession or use of methamphetamine, for example, but that doesn't necessarily tell us what the problems are, what the drug issues are, and then what are all the other issues in that person's life that is causing them to use drugs. So the assessment really looks at everything from drug use to employment, housing, transportation, education, and then we'll develop an individualized plan for that client for them to complete. And the goal is get your life on track. We're going to give you services, everything you need. We're going to give you the tools, and we're going to work with you. And then at the end, what we hope is that you have successfully entered recovery from drug use, and you have the other pieces in place to be a productive, successful member of society.
So in other words, when we hear people say, well, there's a bunch of pot smokers in jail, that's not the case.
That's absolutely false. The last time I checked, there were actually 0 people in the Yavapai County Jail who were there with the most serious offense being possession or use of marijuana. And that's actually true at the state level as well.
Yeah.
So the state prison system, I checked the July report. They come out with a monthly report. In July, out of 42,000 inmates, there were only 142 who were imprisoned for the most serious offense being possession or use of marijuana. And in fact, in Arizona, we have always been a treatment-oriented state when it comes to drug use. So in Arizona, you actually cannot be incarcerated for possession or use of most drugs until you have a third conviction. So for that population in state prison, which is it's less than 1/3 of 1% of the total inmate population that are there on a marijuana offense as their most serious charge, that either had to be a third conviction, or more likely than not, it was a plea down from perhaps a marijuana trafficking offense.
Can you tell me a little bit more about MatForce?
Well, I love MatForce. In fact, I'm a founding member, and I've been the chair of MatForce from its inception, which started in 2006. The thing I love most about MatForce is it is a recognition that government is not going to solve a community's substance abuse problems. And so MatForce is all about partnerships with everyone welcome to the table to look at how do we create a healthy environment where everyone can succeed, where all of our kids can succeed. And it starts with prevention. By the time the criminal justice system is involved, we are way past prevention. At that point, we're looking at people who have chosen or are using drugs for whatever reason, and now they're facing criminal charges. MatForce is about, at the very beginning, raising awareness about the negative consequences of drug use, and then putting programming in place to help our residents of Yavapai County make positive choices. But in particular, what I love about MatForce is how it continues to be so active and so successful. So we have today over, gosh, I've lost track of how many committees work under the umbrella of MatForce, and just how many people continue to be very enthusiastically involved in being part of community events and planning and new projects that are really designed to keep everybody safe. MatForce has lots of programs. One of the programs that we started a couple years ago is our Overdose Fatality Review Board. And that review board is doing very, very significant work looking at unintentional deaths in Yavapai County where drugs are involved and trying to track what were the drugs involved and then where are the gaps in the system where we might have had the opportunity to save lives. So not only do they study these deaths, but then we come out with recommendations every year about how the community can do better. How can we put more safety nets in place so that we don't lose more of our residents to drug overdoses?
Have we seen the numbers go down? I mean, is there evidence that this is working?
Well, unfortunately, what we're seeing right now is a trend that we're seeing across Arizona, which is an increase in the use of fentanyl. Most people probably don't even know what fentanyl is, but fentanyl is an incredibly potent form of, it's an opioid, 50 times more potent than heroin, for example. And literally one drop of fentanyl can kill. Sadly, what we're seeing across the state is more and more fentanyl. And sadly, what we're seeing across the state and here in Yavapai County are more of our fatal drug overdoses involving fentanyl. So what's going on now, the data for Arizona actually shows that we were starting to see an increase in fentanyl overdoses before the COVID pandemic, so we can't blame COVID on it. But I actually sit on a state group, it's called the Arizona Substance Abuse Partnership. It's the governor's council that I chair, and that's one of the things we specifically are looking at are fentanyl trends, what's going on and why, and what we can do to try to get a handle on fentanyl.
So if someone wanted to support this organization, this effort, is there somewhere people can go, reach out, contact, email, web? How can we contact?
Absolutely. It's www.matforce.org, and everybody is welcome. The great thing about MatForce is we have a lot of people in recovery who are very actively involved in MatForce. People who have been there, have seen the kind of life that drug use leads to, and they want to help others not go down that same path.
We are in the process of building a new justice center. How is this going to affect you and your work?
Well, the Justice Center, first of all, just overall, not the county attorney personally, but overall we have known that we need to create a new Justice Center. I mean, that's been in the works for 20 years now, with a lot of studies done, a lot of thought put into location, a lot of thought put into what will happen at the Criminal Justice Center, and then all the pieces that needed to take place to get us to this point. From my perspective as a resident of Prescott, one of the most important things I think that residents need to understand is that every day the Yavapai County Sheriff's Office is transporting prisoners who are in the county jail and who are dangerous, because remember, if you're not in custody, you're not going to be incarcerated pre-trial.
Right.
So these are the folks that the judge has already made the decision, they're dangerous, they need to stay incarcerated, and yet the sheriff has to transport them for court hearings to the downtown courthouse plaza almost every single day. And they're being transported in buses. There is no separate entrance for them, so they are being taken out of the bus right on the courthouse plaza. They use an entrance that members of at least the legal system, we all use that same entrance. There's only one elevator in the courthouse, and so those prisoners are going up and down in that same elevator that the public is using. So I think from the perspective of citizens, of residents here in Prescott, what they need to really think about and be thankful for is once that center is built, that will no longer happen. Those prisoners will be housed out at the where the Juvenile Justice Center is right now, and all of their hearings will take place out there. So for me, that's a huge safety issue, safety for the residents of Prescott, and also a big safety issue just on the road, driving every day from the Camp Verde jail here to Prescott for court hearings.
Yeah. Well, Jeff Noonan mentioned that if someone is arrested, that officer has to transport them to Camp Verde, which is 2 to 5 hours off the streets patrolling, protecting, and that's another safety issue. So I think that 20 to 30 minutes is a whole lot better than 2 to 5 hours of missing patrol officer.
And all of this really has been publicly discussed for several years now. All of the reasons, weighing and balancing all the different factors, and ultimately where the Board of Supervisors ended up was that constructing this facility out near where our juvenile justice facility is really the best thing for the county.
So tell me a little bit about Yavapai Reentry Program.
Yavapai Reentry Program is a project of MatForce, and we started it back in 2011, recognizing that individuals who are being sent to prison, once they've served their time, they are coming back to communities in Yavapai County. And in order to reduce reoffending, in order to keep the jail population low, we decided that the best thing we could do is reach out to those individuals and provide them with services and mentorship to help them be productive and not fall back into the life of crime.
So they're not getting out of jail and you're just dropping them on a corner and saying, good luck.
Which is how the system used to work. People getting out of prison, many times they have nothing to go back to. They have burned bridges. They have burned their relationships. You end up in prison after doing a lot of terrible things along the way. Prison is kind of last resort. So these folks coming out of prison, they have nothing and they have no one to turn to. Well, now they have Yavapai Reentry, where we will match them with a mentor in the community, kind of like the Big Brother, Big Sister program. And the whole goal is to guide them, mentor them, and then connect them with services to keep them from reoffending. But here's what's really cool is that the Sheriff's Office reached out to us a couple years ago to ask if we could offer Yavapai Reentry services to the folks in the county jail. Mm-hmm. So of course we said yes. And now we are working with some of the jail inmates as well, with the same thing in mind. You spend some time in the county jail, and then you get out, and how do you make that choice to develop positive relationships and choose a productive lifestyle instead of going back to your same old friends and that same negative criminal behavior that landed you in jail in the first place? And we see with Yavapai Reentry, we see remarkable success where these folks who complete our program, which is a year of mentorship, who complete are 6 times less likely to reoffend than the average prison population leaving the state prison. So it's very, very successful.
Yeah. It's amazing the number of things that we do to keep our jail population down. Captain Noonan was talking about how he would have over 700 people in his jail if we didn't do the many things, and just how successful they really are.
Yavapai County is incredibly progressive when it comes to partnering within the criminal justice system, partnering with the private sector, the nonprofit sector, in order to make our community safer and at the same time to reduce that jail population.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Sheila. I really appreciate your time. It's obvious we've got several passionate people in this county who do great work, so thank you very much.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Welcome.